Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Land Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to do a little bit of shoulders here in front of the camera, because obviously I'm in front of the camera. But yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of lateral raises, just a couple sets, and then I'm going to do 2 or 3 sets of shoulder presses, just for purposes of making a shorter video. But yeah, let's see what subjects come up to talk about. And the first one that comes to mind right away is that when you are performing an exercise, remember that the main goal is to exhaust the muscle. And to stretch the muscle would be great, you know, stretch under constant tension and so forth. But sometimes if you get too fixated on doing a fuller range of motion or a perfect range of motion, sometimes it works against your ability to fatigue the muscle. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but what happens is that you start to bring in other muscle groups and also pick a weight so that you can accomplish the exercise with those other muscle groups, but you're not necessarily hitting the same ones. So case in point, if I'm doing lateral raises with heavy weight and I'm only coming to here, which is pretty much perfect for my delts, once I feel like I come from here to here, now I'm just bringing in the traps and possibly some other auxiliary muscles in order to bring that arm up, like a lot of neck muscles and so forth. So it's not necessarily like fuller is better, just fuller is different, that's all. So I'm not saying you should always do full or always do partial, but I'm saying depending on what you want to do, you're going to notice that the body almost makes you honest. And it will demand that you move a certain way depending on what's going on. Just check to see if my microphone was on. Let's just see if this microphone's on. You see, it wouldn't be the first time that my microphone was off as I make a whole video. So sorry about that. I had to check that. And then let's do a couple sets of lateral raises. Now, you know, I had to learn the hard way when it comes down to a lot of things in life, okay? Just so you know, I had to learn the hard way. So when I dislocated this shoulder moves different than the left shoulder. It's because the labrum's not there, so the shoulder sits lower in the joint. So if you see that when I lateral raise, the arms move differently, well, that's why. But it doesn't mean that I can't exhaust or fatigue the muscle and get a decent burn and a good feeling, you know? In the end, that's what this is about. Get a good feeling, screw all the other stuff, you know? Feels good. Feels good. So yeah, the neat thing is that if your muscles are hitting exhaustion, you're getting a good burn, something's happening, right? And when you're totally in tune with your body like I am, I can actually feel exactly where those forces are being exerted, sometimes to my frustration and sometimes to my joy, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes I'm very aware of when I'm not isolating a muscle, and sometimes I'm very aware of when the forces are kind of working in a way that's working against me. But when I'm doing the lateral raise, even though this arm is lower than this one or whatever, I'm feeling the delts very strongly, right? Unfortunately, when you have a labral tear from a dislocating shoulder, a lot of times the delts have to stabilize even more. That works great for delt development, but it works horribly for sometimes isolating the chest and so forth, right? But it works horribly for isolating the chest muscle and so forth. But it's just one of those things, you know what I mean? Constant adaptation is really what you're here to do. You're constantly adapting, and just because you're different than you were, or say you have to overcome some sort of obstacle, it doesn't mean that you have to give up on the entire dream of developing a better physique, right? What if your physique is perfectly imbalanced? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe it's the best possible thing, right? You know, think of Hellboy from the comic books. He had one big arm and the other one wasn't, you know, that's an exaggeration, but in the end, you know, you create the rules on which perfection exists, right? You don't have to let the rules be imposed upon you. And improvement is improvement. It doesn't matter whether you're perfect or not. Just improve in whatever way you can. And like I said, I look at improvement as mainly, am I feeling better, right? feeling better and enjoying the workout, getting the pump. And am I big enough to mess with the Sasquatches up in the woods? You know, because you guys have been here for a while. You've seen that I've had to go up in the woods quite a bit to film videos, and you never know what you're going to encounter. So if I keep doing a lot of raises, you know, the Sasquatch doesn't know whether my shoulders are perfect or not, but it will recognize supreme muscular development and intimidation. So mark my words, you know, it isn't about perfection, it's about intimidation. That's right. Can you intimidate the Sasquatches? Yeah, Sasquatches are sufficiently in fear and terror right now. Yeah, I know you get it. All right, let's go do some shoulder press. I'm just doing 2 sets of lateral raises, get a good burn, good warm up, and then on to shoulder press. Remember, because you're a bodybuilder, to not be married so much to one technique. Sometimes a little bit of variation can be good for you, such as when you're bench pressing. Don't be afraid to narrow up the grip or widen the grip from time to time, just to see if what you're doing is distributing the forces in the right place or the right location. And so often I see people stick to the same grip, and I was guilty of that. I was guilty of always the same type of grip, same type of width. And of course, if you find the perfect one, you know, you can stick with it. But sometimes people will have a different grip width, and they'll notice that they get certain aches and pains in the body, and they'll stick with it anyway. And I'm saying, no, you definitely want to look at your grip first and foremost and see if that will produce, you know, better results or an alleviation of pain or whatever. And if it's also distributing the forces on the muscles you want to hit, you know you're going to get a lot more results. So don't be afraid to do that. And that's one thing that I can say is that, you know, I used to do wide grip on shoulder press, especially standing, and I find a bit of a narrower grip is better. It takes some of the stress off the neck. And at the same time, I do get a little bit more force on the triceps, and I do like that. A little bit of tension on the triceps and the shoulders together. So yeah, remember to experiment. Remember not to get too married to grip width all the time. Mountain. I just posted a clip of me squatting on Instagram, and somebody asked me, hey, is that technique the perfect technique for them to build legs? And I would say it would be if they were built like me, but it just depends on what you feel is the right range of motion and the right technique in order to keep the tension on the muscles, right? And also, you know, I have my certain limitations when it comes down to my physique and to my body. And some of those limitations can be overcome and some of them cannot. And it's through this surfing of those limitations, as well as, you know, whether they're imposed or created from being inflexible, or whether they are genetic, that you have to traverse. You have to figure that out. And I found that when I squat a certain way, I really keep the tension on the legs. When I go deeper, it transfers to the lower back and to the knees and to the ligaments and tendons and stuff. And I know that that's definitely not helping me, right? And it just creates unnecessary pain. So, you know, really what happens is that you're going to notice that certain people move certain ways because they're built a certain way. And if you're in tune here, you're going to be able to make the right adjustments for you in order to feel the tensions on that muscle belly. So, you know, no matter what I say, no matter what I do, I always want you to find your way. And that's really my main message. It's not necessarily, and that's not a cop-out either. I'm not just saying to find your way, because then that means that I'm not accountable for whatever it is I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are definitely certain ways that each person has to move. And if you're built like a Sasquatch, your stride is going to be different, right? How you lift trees and throw them over the mountains, it's going to be different than, say, somebody that's built more like a dwarf or a Muppet like me. You know, it's going to be different. So you got to have some level of self realization. You have to have some sort of level of self-knowledge. And the more you know the self, the more you know yourself, and we're going to talk about specifically the body form of yourself, the more easily you're going to have a time of finding what is the right technique for you to get super pumpy and lumpy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. Eh? That's right. So let's do another set. Nice, see? Works the delts. That's all you gotta do. So something that's asked of me lots is, how much volume should somebody do? How much training? Should they be doing the 6-hour arm workout by Rich Piano? That kind of stuff, And what I'm gonna say is the thing you wanna reset back into is understanding that intensity is more important than volume, 100%, right? Just being intense on the muscle. But if you train too much, then all you're doing is basically giving the body too much stress to adapt to. You're just breaking the body down too much and it cannot catch up, right? So it's not like you're giving it the wrong type of stress, but if there's just too much, then the body just doesn't have the resources to recover from that. So more importantly, what you want to do is challenge the muscle and then feed it. Feed it the food, feed it the sleep, right? And then from there's going to be some sort of synergy that is created from that. But don't worry so much about getting in massive amounts of volume. Just a bit of intensity, right? And then go from there. Now you can have the days where you do lots of volume. If you feel like you should do it, right? I have days where it feels like, hey, more volume is necessary. And there's nothing wrong with spicing that into your training here and there. But if you feel obligated to do it all the time, what will happen is that you will be ignoring certain fatigue factors that are kind of telling you like, hey man, like I've already got enough to deal with, right? The body's already telling you that. And then you just keep training through it. You're not getting more results from that. What you're doing is you're just overburdening the body at that point. So I'm not against high volume. I'm just against high volume for the sake of high volume. You see? Because what happens is that if you just follow that kind of recipe, what's happening is you're not listening to the subtle markers in the body where it's telling you. So one way to listen to the body and know that maybe, a lot of volume is not good is that when you notice that there's a certain bit of tightness going on in the muscles that day where it's almost like they're a little exhausted or a little dead. That would be a sure sign that you either need a day off, or if you're going to do a workout, just remind it that it needs to stay strong, but it's not necessarily of beat the body to death day, right? It's not a good day to say, hey, I'm going to beat the body to death. It's kind of like kicking a guy when he's down, right? You've already knocked him out. You've broken both his arms with good jiu-jitsu, right? You pulled on his hair a little bit and smacked him in the nose, You don't need to keep stomping on him, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where, listening to these fatigue signals can help you not waste so much time. That's all. So, the only way to know the truth is to train through it and see what happens. I mean, of course, and I highly recommend you make a few mistakes because I did, right? But there's going to be days where it's okay to have, rhythmic sort of intensities, where some days you're more intense with more volume, and then other days you're just intense, and then other days you have glorified warm-up workouts where they're just going through the motions, keeping the blood going, and from there, by combining all of these three things and dispersing them through different workouts, you can remain consistent and consistently make gains. And that's really the most important thing. Yeah. Mount. Okay. Last set. There you go. See, that's what I got to say about it, Remember, there's different types of workouts. Some are very intense, some are high volume, some are lower volume. But remember, The lower volume, higher intensity is more important than the volume. That's really what I'm gonna say. So anyway, guys, I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patient supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.